Hello, you lot. I am back again with another video. This time it is late night Leeds. I've had a change of shirt. I've opened the blinds. And it's still looking a bit light in here, isn't it? It's still looking like daytime, even though it's absolutely grey and rubbish outside. But here we are with your late night Leeds. Here we are with your Bamford files. And yeah, let's get into it. This is going to be all about Patrick Bamford, and a bit of a controversial one, obviously, probably from me, in terms of you guys might have known in the past. I've not been his biggest fan, but listen, he's proved a lot of people wrong, including myself. I've said this on videos. I'm going to be transparent with you guys. I think he's done a really good job. I think he's got a lot better, and I'm actually excited to see Bamford in the Premier League. I think hopefully he's going to prove a lot of people wrong, like he proved a lot of people wrong this year. And let's just wait and see what he's going to be like in the Premier League. But obviously, with the signing of Rodrigo, that could be something where it opens up Bamford's play a little bit. Leeds could essentially go to a 3-4-1-2, or we could change it up a little bit and make a little bit of a variation in the 3-3-1-3. Maybe bring the someone in like Bamford into a false nine position in that three going up top. Bring Rodrigo in there as well, or Pablo Hernandez. Whatever the variation may be, that might help Patrick Bamford. I can really see it helping him with someone like Rodrigo up front. I really can. And our Leeds going to move away from that one up front. I think we might potentially have to, because I don't know if Rodrigo can play that role. And I don't know if Bamford will just be the starting centre forward every single week. I just don't see that when you've spent 29 million on a centre forward in Rodrigo. I think Leeds evidently have massive plans for this guy. He's, as Victor Orta says, a world-class signing. So I just, for me, cannot see Bamford not playing with Rodrigo quite frequently. And with Bamford being only sort of 27 years of age, could he learn a lot of Rodrigo? Could it improve his game? Has he ever played with anyone like Rodrigo before? I would say no, not really. The only person who I can say might get to that level in a sense could be maybe Wilf Zaha when he was at Palace. But aside from that, he's been at sort of lower league, Premier League, yo-yo clubs and you know, sort of Premier League, you know, who are going to get relegated essentially, and then Championship upper boys. That's been it. And yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As Bernie, my man, says, like, comment, and subscribe. As always, this episode is sponsored by Ship with a capital P, BikesUSA.com. Go check all your customized, detailed motorcycle to everyone's needs, to everybody's needs. Bernie will do whatever you want, whenever you want. He's a very reasonable man. He really is. And yeah, let's get into it. But let me know what you guys think about Patrick Bamford. I think Rodrigo will move up Bamford in ability. I really hope so. Paddy has had too much negativity. Has Rodrigo signed Connor? I have no idea, mate, but I can see him and my man Robin Hood being very, very soon. Hey, Connor, Bamford needs a good start. I would completely agree. I think he needs to hit the ground running. A lot of divided opinions, obviously, on Patrick Bamford. And yeah, so let's get into it anyway. Let's get into what we can talk about old Patrick. Now, this is where Patrick was brought up, in sunny old Grantham in Lincolnshire. I've been to Grantham. It's nice. It's nice. It's a nice place. If any of you are from Grantham, hello. Lincolnshire, it's a decent area, famous for agriculture. So yeah, that's where Bamford was born. The JCB owner, Anthony Bamford, is Patrick's long distance relative. There he is, and that's where the name comes from. The Lord and the Right Honourable Lord Bamford. There he is. Look at that, Lord Bamford. And this is where, you know, Bamford, a lot of people talk about Patrick not being the Yorkshire Evening Post even reported it. They said that he's not a stereotypical footballer. You know, he's not from a sort of working class background. He's from a very, very good background from all reports. You know, A-starred in French, A-starred in history at GCSE level. So he's one which is a little bit out of the mill of the standardized football players, if you will. And yeah, I guess he's always been portrayed that throughout his career. You know, with the old floppy hair and everything, and sort of how he plays, and it's the square ball do a really good sort of impersonation of him. It is very, very funny. And yeah, he's always had this sort of reputation that's followed him, really. Has that hindered him at some points? Potentially. Has it made him maybe go under the radar a little bit? Yeah, so it can sort of work both ways. But yeah, Patrick's long-distance relation is old Lord Bamford. So when you guys are all saying Lord Bamford, there is a reason behind this. Look at that man, the chairman of JCB. Doesn't he look happy? But Lord Bamford was actually went to Ampleforth College. Ampleforth College, which is near me, which is just, it's like Hogwarts. It's like Hogwarts. So all Paddy comes from good stock. So he started his career at Nottingham Forest, where he only got 2 first-team caps in, I believe, the year of 2011. And then he made a very, very lucrative move south of the border and into unknown territory, London Town. He moved to Chelsea. So from 2012 to 2017, and look at his age. Look at him there, by the way. He's not aged a year, has he? I mean, look how long ago this was. 2012, 8 years ago. And it does seem weird looking at Lord Patrick there in a, look at him there. Look at his hair. Look at that lovely, feathered and lethal. And Patrick was at Chelsea from 2012 to 2017, and it didn't really work for him. Can you believe this? He didn't make a single appearance for the Chelsea first team, which I found absolutely staggering. You spend 5 years at a club and you don't make a single first team appearance. Unbelievable. Apparently there was a WhatsApp group between all the loanees who Chelsea continuously loaned out, including Bamford. There was 39 members of this WhatsApp group. What a policy. Now, where he first made his name, Old Lord, we will call him Lord for the rest of this show. He made his imprint really at MK Dons. Now look at him there. He does look a little bit younger there. Got a little bit more of a spike to the hair, not as much of a slick back like a duck's back. It is a little bit more spiky there. And that was actually when he got the winner against Wigan, when Wigan were a very good side back in, I believe it was 2012. He was loaned out and he got the winner, I believe. Oh, no, it was a 3-3. Sorry, it was 3-3 draw. Patrick got the equaliser and he did extremely well at MK Dons. Cal Robinson wanted to keep him and extend his contract at MK Dons, and he did that, but then he wanted a further extension, which Chelsea, in actual fact, turned down. Patrick did very, very well that year. I believe he got 17 goals, 18 goals. Obviously, a young lad at that point, was coming onto the England scene as well. There was a lot of promise and hope about Patrick. And then he made his move later on to Derby County. He moved to Derby, and he did okay at Derby. 21 appearances, 8 goals, and it was actually under Steve McLaren. Not a smoke and a pancake, Steve. But it was Steve McLaren that acquired his services, and he actually wanted to keep him there. And there was a really good article as well, which says here, Derby County are desperate to make sure Patrick Bamford doesn't come back to haunt them on Saturday. The Chelsea loanee spent the end of the season on loan at the Rams, scoring 8 goals in 23 games for Steve McLaren's side. Now, this is obviously when he moved to Middlesbrough afterwards, and he was in absolute form. He was firing form. And it was one of those where you thought to yourself, it was really interesting that Derby couldn't get that signing. And this is where Patrick's career was loan. He didn't really get that consistency until he moved to Middlesbrough a lot later on down the line. Now, this was his first spell at Middlesbrough in 14-15. Moved on from Derby, of course, even with the mid-interest of Derby County and Steve McLaren smoking a pipe. He moved on, went to Boro in 14-15. And he seemed to find a little bit of a home at Boro. I believe he scored 12 to 13 goals. Did extremely well for his first spell, really. And he did much better than he did at Derby. He looked like more of a player. I've watched a lot of highlights just in research for this. And he looked much more of a player at Boro in that season than he did at Derby. So it seems like his second home, aside from Leeds, of course, was always Middlesbrough. You know, he seemed to always do extremely well there. Whether or not that was the calibre of player that was there, obviously, he's been with some excellent players, some championship-winning players as well, some Premier League players, of course. Whether or not that's because of that, and Derby obviously were never really there, but he was part of that Derby team that lost 1-0 in the playoff final to Zamora in the playoff final. So, yeah, he was part of that. So he has been part of quite a few failed playoff campaigns, but obviously the end goal was getting promoted with the mighty Whites. And so he also moved on then after Boro to Palace. Now, when he went to Palace, it was not a good time for Lord Patrick. It wasn't a good time. And this actually ended in Patrick terminating his own deal. Now, this wasn't an agreement. believe between both clubs or anything like that. Patrick actually terminated his own deal. Now, I remember when I was a little bit younger, this is when Patrick started getting a little bit of a reputation of, obviously, he was turning into a little bit of a journeyman. Chelsea weren't giving him any real accreditation. They weren't starting him in the lineup. They weren't even putting him on the bench. He wasn't getting any sort of kudos from anyone, any consistency. And he was led out on loan. And they didn't really ever seem any thought process behind the loans. You know, if Leeds United are going to loan Robbie Gotts out to Huddersfield Town this year, there's a thought process behind that. If Leeds are going to, you know, obviously, like I've just said, loan Robbie Gotts out or whoever to Huddersfield, it's going to be because Carlos Corbrand's there. It's because there's a plan in place there for him to come back to Leeds and play in this system. If we loan someone out to Barnsley, there's been a lot of rumours of Jamie Shackleton going to Barnsley. If he did go to Barnsley, Gerhard Struber plays a fantastic brand of football that, for me, will see Barnsley do extremely well this year. He plays a fantastic style of football, which actually draws a lot of similarities and comparisons with Marcelo Bielsa's philosophy and technicalities on the football pitch. So that loan would make sense. A lot of these loan deals for Patrick didn't seem customised for his attributes, customised for his mindset, customised for where he wanted to go as a professional footballer in his young career. You forget he is only 26. So have these all caused a little bit of problems for Patrick moving on into his first spell at Leeds when he couldn't really hit the ground running? Maybe he's always thinking about that consistency. Am I going to be in the squad? Am I going to be out the squad? Is the manager going to like me? Is another manager going to come in? And I feel that is where it leads, especially in this season, especially post-COVID. Sorry, that's the wrong phrase because it isn't post-COVID at all. What I mean is when we came back from the break, that's maybe where he found his form. And he did. He looked like a really good player post that period. So it's definitely something to look at. And I think it is. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really exciting to see what he potentially could do in the Premier League, and you know, that who would have thought that from me. But yeah, it didn't work out for him at Palace at all. And as you can see here, this didn't go down well with the Palace fans. Patrick Bamford ends terrible Crystal Palace loan. BBC Sport. Striker Patrick Bamford has ended his season-long loan at Crystal Palace to return. Bamford, 22, made the decision public after Monday's 0-0 draw at home to Swansea. Apparently, before he told manager Alan Pardew, that was my last game for Palace. So as you can see, it was Pardew. I mean, he's not... I wouldn't say he's ever had the best managers to work with. Obviously, he's had Dyche as well, who it didn't go down well with, which we'll get onto in a second. But Patrick's never, for me, really felt at home. I've been doing a lot of research and sort of understanding the background of him. And he's been carted around everywhere. As I've just said before, there's been no real trust in him to lead that number 9 role. And I think that was always vital when Marcelo Bielsa came in. One of the, well, for me, the best coach in the world who came in and said, no, I want him as my number 9. And we're looking now at people like Rodrigo and we're looking at people like Ben White, and we all turn around and say, you know what, that's Bielsa's choice. Patrick Bamford was Bielsa's choice. He was his number 1 choice. So looking at that recruitment strategy, the fact that Victor Orta managed to go and get him, that was all signed, sealed and delivered by Bielsa as well. You know, we talk about Rodrigo. Leave it, Rodrigo. You can't talk about Rodrigo in bad terms because that was Bielsa's number 1. Now, Patrick Bamford was also one of Bielsa's top targets. So have we got to think about that a little bit more? You know, it's not all just on the feet of Patrick Bamford and on the mindset of Patrick Bamford. There's a lot more going on, and Leeds have put so much faith in that boy. And yeah, it's up to you guys in the comment section below. Do you think that's paid dividends? Do you think we're still waiting for the best of Patrick Bamford? Yeah, it is really interesting. And as Oipa says here, Bielsa does love Bamford, and that is that's one that you've got to look at and think, fair play, Marcelo Bielsa, for sticking with the man that you've always said. And, you know, I've been very frustrated. You guys have watched me for a long time now, very frustrated at Patrick Bamford at spells. But, you know, I'm not always right. And I know I'm not. I'm my own worst critic. And, you know, you've got to take a step back. I was the one who came out and said Patrick Bamford will not be the striker to lead us to the Premier League. What a nugget I look, you know. And I'm happy to say that because I always wanted him to prove me wrong. What a nugget I am. Fair play to you, son. You've done it. And you're in the Premier League now where you deserve to be. So let's hope that is going to be let's hope that that's going to be something that we see in the top division. Now, when he obviously moved from he left Palace, terminated his own contract, that was only I believe in the December. And as you can see, a lovely picture of him here. But he made that move once again. He made that move north, I believe it is actually, to Norwich. Now, he moved to Norwich and once again didn't really hit the ground running. He was only fed into the team initially in the March. He signed in January, made his first start in March. Didn't really hit the ground running and, didn't really pull up a lot of trees with Norwich fans. Obviously, we've had Chris Reeve on the channel who has said some certain things to me about Patrick Bamford that I won't release on this show. But Chris isn't a fan of him, never has been. Thought he had real attitude problems at Norwich and didn't give everything for the cause. It just seemed like a really bad time for him. And this is just, it's spell after spell. You've got Palace, Burnley, Norwich. It just didn't happen for Bamford. And as I say, I don't think Chelsea played a good role in what they did with Bamford and how they set him up and who they sent him out to. And it just seemed like the wrong club every single time. And he clearly wants to be made to feel like the number 9, the starting man, the marksman. And he needs a little bit of an arm around him. And I still don't think he had that at any of these clubs. And, if you don't put your arm around a player, you're not going to get the right results. And we've seen that. We have seen, I won't say a drastic increase with him at Leeds because, he did really well at Boro, which we'll get onto in a second in both spells, especially when they signed him. And he actually got more goals for Boro than he did for Leeds this season. We created so many more chances than Boro did in that season. If you actually look back and look at the expected goals. So, there's still more to come from Bamford. I think there's a lot more to come from him. His finishing needs to sharpen up. We all know that. But at the same time, I'm still willing to give him a chance. And especially with someone like Rodrigo next to him. I mean, someone like Rodrigo is going to bring his game up tenfold. So that's why I'm turning around to you guys and saying, I think it could be okay because of someone like Rodrigo and potentially someone like Ryan Kent or someone like, Harry Wilson or whatever. These players in and around Bamford are only going to completely improve him. Because let's be right, it wasn't only on him. Costa, debut season, I still don't think Costa did a bad job at all. Some people disagree with me. You look at Jack Harrison's first season, I don't think it was any better. I think it was actually probably worse than Helder Costa's first season. But Helder Costa hasn't scored enough goals. Jack Harrison's done a lot better, but I still wouldn't say he's scored enough goals. Click's obviously marketably gone down in his goal ratio. Pablo's not been as good this season. So you can't always blame Bamford. I think a lot of us blamed Bamford sometimes because it was his natural finishing ability. The ball would come to him and he wouldn't connect with it properly and you would sort of question whether or not he has that clinical nature in his footballing ability or whether or not Bamford needs the ball to come into him. And, you're not always going to have that time to be able to shoot on sight. A lot of the time you have to get the ball in and amongst your feet, realise what you need to do, then place the ball. I think Bamford's actually worse when he has to have time to think. When he's got 3 or 4 second spell where he's thinking, the ball's probably going to go wide. But when it's instinctively, I think he's okay. I think he's actually instinctively got a decent finishing rate on him. But when he has time to think, it doesn't seem to connect properly with him. And maybe that's always been his issue. But then obviously he moved to Burnley. Now, sorry about the dodgy picture here, guys. I could barely get any decent pictures of him at Burnley. But this was a really interesting one because you've always thought, once again, of Sean Dyche as being a man manager. Sean Dyche, come on then, talk. We'll get you better. Come on, Ben me. And that's the sort of guy he is. He's a bit of a leader in the dressing room, isn't he? He's got that gravelly voice and he's a bit of a banterous character when you see him on air and all this sort of stuff. And he's done absolutely brilliantly. In terms of getting Burnley to that next level, sustaining them. Obviously, they were a yo-yo club for a period of time, but look where he's got them now. A solidified Premier League outfit for a club the size of Burnley. Hats off to you, Sean Dyche. But yeah, once again, Bamford moving around again to Burnley, and it didn't work again. Issues with Dyche. Dyche actually came out and said there was issues with Patrick Bamford, an attitude problem once again. And they didn't see it eye to eye. And Patrick Bamford apparently was more than happy to leave Burnley. So we're noticing a little bit of a pattern here, aren't we, guys? We're seeing Burnley, we're seeing Norwich, we're seeing Palace, we're seeing spouts everywhere. It's just not working for him. And I just think I think it was it just wasn't a great period for Patrick. But then there was a move. Now, there was a £5.5 million bid accepted for Patrick Bamford from Aitor Karanka's Middlesbrough. And Bamford went up a level. There was that trust in him that was instilled in him. He was that number 9. He was who they were going to look to provide the goals, and it paid dividends. 19 goals, a famous hat trick against the Whites, as you can see here. We all remember that one. Patrick Bamford wheeling away his first ever hat trick in his career. against Leeds United. And isn't that interesting who you see behind him there? Pontus Janssen. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, you couldn't have seen those two swapping shirts. Looks like once again, Janssen there is in a typical whinge. Look at him sort of shouting at the crossbar. Bamford really mugging him off and going away there. But yeah, that just sums up both players there, doesn't it, really? Bamford always seems to be happy on the football pitch, and Janssen just always seems to be upset. But yeah. And yeah, you know, it was a good period for him, a really good period for him. 19 goals. Obviously, in his previous spell as well, he got 13 goals. So all in all for Boro, he did really well. And I do believe it was because the trust was given to him. He wasn't going out on silly 3-month loans, silly 6-month loans. He was actually given a little bit of trust. And it would have been really interesting to see whether or not earlier on in his career at a Derby or a Norwich, if they'd have given him the number 9 shirt and just spent a transfer fee on him, got him away from that pretty poisonous atmosphere at Chelsea, it seems. You know, him not being able to get a single game in 5 years. And, you know, them wanting a fee for him consistently, that he needed trust. And as I keep saying, that T word it's absolutely pivotal in football. We see it, you know, with Matthias Klipp, having that trust from a manager. Christiansen didn't like him, loaned him out. There was a spat between Leeds. It looked like he was going to get rid of him. He's come back, he's played, 80-odd games, wants to get into the Premier League season. A trust from a manager is absolutely huge. And Bielsa has put that in abundance into Patrick Bamford, above any other player for me, because he's had some critics, some absolute pelters from people for starting him. But, you know, proves people wrong. And that's why Marcelo Bielsa is where he is. That's why Patrick Bamford is where he is. And I'm in my bedroom. No, but listen, I'm an honest guy. I'm never going to come out and BS you guys. That is what it was. It was up to about 3 or 4 months ago. I wasn't sold on the guy, but then he came back and I thought, you know what, you're actually going for it here, and you're doing well, and you're playing excellently well. And yeah, I just thought to myself, you know, if he has someone alongside him, maybe he could prove even more people wrong. But yeah, and obviously he made his signing for Leeds, which we've all gone on about, and it was the big one. It was when he signed for Leeds, and Victor Orta says, of course, in the Amazon documentary, how I went and got Middlesbrough's number 9. They're going to hate me even more. Bit of a dodgy first season, didn't he? Obviously, probably the Villa one stands out a little bit more, you know, and he dived and got the ban, and obviously been caught in the Amazon documentary talking about that Villa dive and saying, you know, he hurt him, and Ailing sort of taking the mick out of him, and that was quite funny and interesting. Had a lot of injuries last year, but he's sort of stayed injury-free this year, and he's been okay, Bamford. I think he's done well, you know, 16 goals, okay, yeah, don't get me wrong, I'd have liked him to score 20, 25 goals and wrapped it up 2 months ago, which I think he's had the chances to do. But as I've been told by a lot of people, a lot of players do not get into the positions that Patrick Bamford does. A lot of players don't, and he works for the team, he links up well, he works hard. And as we've seen with Rodrigo, it's not all about the goals. It's not all about the goals in football. It is about the link-up play, but we do need more people around him, for me, who need to help him. And I think that's where we'll get the sort of absolute fruitful attacking dynamic in the Premier League. And that's it, guys. That's been your Bamford Files. That's been Lord Bamfordinho, his case study. That has been your life, Patrick. Listen, I hope you all have a great evening. Share this with your friends as well. If they've not seen this ugly mug before, share it with your friends. There's been about 500 of you watching this, which has been great. If you don't mind slapping a like on the video, we're on the road to 7K. I think we're on about 6, 7 now, which is great. Only 300 more to get to 7, which will be incredible. Your guys' support is just getting better and better and better. So thank you so much. There'll be more rumour mills tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have Rodrigo and Robin Koch very, very soon. Guys, have a good one. I'll see you